No filters, no limits, just fearless creators changing the game. Unmasked series, the revolution is personal. Tashlyn, welcome to Unmasked.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Listen, the first time I met you, the first time I saw you actually was at an agricultural event about a few months ago.
Crazy.
And yeah, it was. And not only did you facilitate it well, you managed to read the room. And I think that was one thing I realized. That was the first thing I saw about you. What, have you always been good with people?
That's actually so crazy. It's crazy that you met me at the event. I don't even think
I saw you at the event, but I didn't meet you then.
You should have come and say hi, Tashlyn.
No, I was shy. I was extremely shy.
But I would say that I've always been someone who, I am an observer. So I literally always read the room. In any room that I get into, I feel energy. I'm such like an energy feeler.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something that I was blessed with.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that I just know people per se, but I think I know what the audience wants, especially when it comes to work. In my general life, man, I wish I knew people.
Yeah.
But when it comes to work, I feel like I know how to gauge what the audience wants.
Have you always generally been confident from an early age? Were you invested from high school level? When did the confidence come in?
I think I was definitely always a very confident child.
Yeah.
I always loved the spotlight. I loved talking. Public speaking was something that I always just dived into. So it definitely came from my childhood. Shout out to my mom though, actually, because she was the one that also just pushed. I was always like, okay, you stand in front and tell us if there's family events or functions. I'll do like the intros. School was also a great opportunity for me. It was relatively a small school, but public speaking, I studied dramatic arts. So I think this confidence was something that I was born with, embedded with, because I believe that I was born for this industry. But yeah, luckily.
So when you say dramatic arts, was drama in the picture first, or was like presenting the picture first?
Drama was definitely in the picture first.
And then when did the shift happen?
I think So when you're in university, you realize that there's a broader part of what entertainment is, you know. And unfortunately, in South Africa, entertainment is very it's tight. It's difficult for you to say, okay, I'm studying acting and I'm definitely going to be, casted for the next best movie in South Africa. And once I studied dramatic arts, there was many different functionalities. So we could do voice, we could do writing. And that's when I was like, you know what? I actually really like presenting. If I can make money through my voice, why not? I can be in front of the camera, but I can also still tell stories. And I was like, okay, this is the thing that I want. When
you talk about presenting, you have a very interesting way in conducting interviews. And the reason why I'm saying that is that you have an interesting way of getting information out of people.
Wow.
So you're very good at conversations. Yes. But do you have is there like a secret, is like a remedy? Did you do that? In terms of getting the certain information? Because this is like the art of interview, like what I'm doing with you now.
Absolutely.
Look, there's research, but is there something that you do differently to get certain information for your audience?
So when I prepare for any type of interview, regardless of the questions that I get asked to ask the people that I am interviewing, I think the main thing that I always say, especially when you are presenting, I ask the questions based off what I would like to know on the outside if I had to watch something. So even if it's something I'm not interested in, if someone needs to put the show on for me, what would I want to know from agriculture? What would I want to know from machinery, how machinery works, and it's something I'm not interested in? It's about what the audience wants and not necessarily what marketing wants. And just talk to the person as if it's a human. So instead of me asking you about, so I know you are a mechanic, example, and you fix a car, I'm going to ask you, so what led you into that and why fixing a car? And then the conversation grows, the person gets comfortable, and it's a more human interaction more than it is a marketing strategy.
So it's more about the journey other than that, like the results.
Absolutely.
You're more about the journey. And have you ever had an interview that goes off script?
It does all the time, because I am a yapper of note and I love the different intricate questions. But I think I always bring it in. Like, we always need to know how to bring it in. But what I love is, and I think it is by the grace of God, people always just have this comfortability, even if they're introverts, to just tell me more. And I think it's just the way I communicate with them and make them feel like we can ignore the cameras right now. They're not here. It's just me and you. Let's just talk.
At some point, there's no team.
Exactly.
We just go with the flow.
Exactly.
Then that's an interesting thing. So if you have that, clearly there's a different way that you engage with people.
Yeah.
And that's a gift that you've you've learned over time, or just the craft that you've learned over time? Has there been ever like been a point where there's an on and off season when you're like, you have an interview and then you're like, this didn't go well? Absolutely. Have you ever gone through that trial and error moment in your life?
I have.
And has it been demotivating at some point?
So I am actually not a person who gets demotivated. I know that it sounds far-fetched. I'm not trying to sound too optimistic.
Yeah.
I think I have my moments, but I always take it as, okay, where did I go wrong? What was the issue? How was my energy feeling that day? For the next one, let me do better. There were many interviews actually, especially in the beginning when I just started out.
Yeah.
If I watch them, I promise you I'll cringe. So cringing for yourself is normal, guys. I'd cringe and I'd be like, oh my goodness, why did I say it like that? Why did I use my hands? But it's all trial and error. Like, you learn. The more interviews you do, you become comfortable. You become comfortable with your own style. And I think when I would notice the errors or the days that I didn't like the interview, I was probably trying to be an interviewer that I'm not, or trying to not copy, but almost like take on how someone else does the interviews.
Do you see that often with
do.
other presenters trying to sound like somebody else?
Absolutely.
What advice would you give them?
Those presenters already exist, and they are big within their style.
Absolutely.
There is not a presenter like you. And if you want to make it in this field, you need to come with you. You need to just embrace who you are as a presenter. Normally people say I do have an accent, and before I used to be like, what? I can't have an accent.
But that's a South African accent.
That's a South African, and that's Tash. So now when you turn your TV on, your social media on, people are going to say, oh, that's Tash. So just be yourself. There's that presenter exists, and then there's you, and the world wants you. So
I mean, look, you're on a trajectory right now, and I kind of feel that, I mean, look, you're ticking all the right boxes, but have you ever felt within your journey, it could be in the initial stages, could even be now, have you ever felt that you've been underestimated in some way or form?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I always feel that way. I've shifted from that mindset, though, this year, because I'm a firm believer that God will create the space.
I love that.
He will create the table. He will create the opportunity. But I do feel that I have been undermined in so many aspects of my life. And I think it's just a general thing us South Africans have.
Yeah.
And I use it as fuel. I love it. I'm the type of person like, please do underestimate me. Yeah.
Undermined in the sense that not because you're a talent, or do you think that, I mean, look, the presenting, actually the creative field it's a plethora of talent. Do you think that they did not understand your journey, you understand your story? I mean, is it a matter of populism? Where did that perspective come from?
I really do think that, unfortunately, people base everything off popularity and what's popping and what people and who people know. So I think for me, if you do check my social media, I don't have the biggest numbers. I have a very well-formed community, though, that like supports me in everything that I do, but I don't have a lot of numbers.
So you have a niche audience.
I really do. I really do. And I think people undermining me, especially in this space, does come from that. So if you go to an event, for example, I've been in the most prestigious events. And it's crazy because it's like, how did Tashlyn get in there? And once someone doesn't know you and see you on face value and you are at the event, there's a different type of feeling. But I think once people maybe go into your social media, you see you have a little following or whatever, you do get like that instance of people undermining you until they hear who you've worked with or what you do. But I think it's just a general thing that people do. I think we'll praise the person that has more followers or the celebrity instead of praising the person who's lower but is actually better or doing so much good for themselves and for others. I think it's just something that, it's a people thing.
Unfortunately, I think that the narrative now is that social media following responds to listenership or audience viewers, and that could be the detriment of the culture of just the media industry as a whole. You know what I mean? And I think, unfortunately, there's many people like you who are as talented, or like you said, may have a large social media following. However, like you have strategically you have an audience that are locked into what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you may not have a strong following, but then your viewers are high.
Yeah.
So that means you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's crazy though, because I think the switch literally is starting to come this year. My followers are growing, but I think it's also just as a person, once you learn the art of detaching yourself from societal expectations and living out what you know was promised and planned to you, that's where the switch comes. And that's where you start getting the visibility, you start getting the brand work or just the opportunity. And I think it's all up to the individual at the end of the day. So separate yourself from the numbers, separate yourself from the societal expectations. I mean, there's amazing presenters that's upcoming. There's a girl by the name of Joy. She doesn't have a lot of followers, but if you check her content and how she presents, amazing. There's a girl, Nomalanga, you know, she's doing amazing. And I think it's just about society needing to accept that it's not just about the numbers or popularity, about the raw talent and, you know, the next best thing that can be. And give people a chance, allow them to shine.
You are a fan of pop culture.
Yes.
And South African pop culture has a way of, it's like a moving carpet. You just don't know when exactly. So you have to stay on that carpet, but it moves all the time.
Yeah.
Why is pop culture in South Africa so important to you?
Pop culture is literally, in South Africa especially, it's how we curate stories. Storytelling for me has always been the thing that I rave about. It's why I studied dramatic arts. You know, for me, it's always like, I'm an observer, like I said. So I see what's happening in society, collect all that data, throw it back to society and be like, what now? Or this is what we're dealing with. So pop culture in South Africa, everything is so embedded in our culture, in our stories, in our, you know, where we come from. I think, like, compared to the world, pop culture is very much like the trends, the fashion. But in South Africa, it's just the intricacy of like our stories embedded in everything, whether it's our soapies that we watch, our fashion pieces that we make, the music that we create.
Absolutely.
And I'm a storyteller, and I express myself through creativity. So I'm like, I love all pop culture. Like, give me more. What's happening? You know? So
do you respond to pop culture, or do you create culture?
I am.
And I know you're a culture
I'm
creator.
a culture curator. I believe. Yeah.
In terms of creating culture.
Yes.
Tell me the difference.
I think like being an absorber is taking what everyone else gives you. So you're absorbing pop culture, you're interacting with it. But I think curating culture is the things that I do. So if I have to interview and asking your stories, by writing different pieces, by creating content and then structuring it in a way that like feeds society in what they want, and giving the stories of the actor or the musician, you know, that's curating culture, that's keeping culture alive and creating a spotlight on those things. So yeah, I think that's the difference.
How do you know? So look, this could be a very vague question, but how do you know that this is the right person to talk at the right time? So I'm talking to Tashlyn now, and I know exactly why I'm talking to Tashlyn, because I mean, look, you're on a trajectory. However, how do you select the right person to talk to in a culture that moves so fast? How do you know that this is the person I need to interview? This is the person I need to get information out of. Why is that person so important? And how do you know that I've selected the right person?
You have to be on top of everything. Where's the world moving to? What is actually happening? What's hot right now? From knowing that, it's just like a switch that clicks. So if I know what's happening in music, or if I know what's happening in the acting space, I'll know, okay, this is where we're moving right now. For example, Wuthering Heights is coming out. There's going to be a premiere in South Africa. They're going to probably invite me to the premiere. Who's hot right now? Who's the next best upcoming actress in that field? We had a South African lady who's acting in Bridgerton, so I would be interested to ask her, like, what's happening? How is the scene outside there, you know? It's always just about knowing what's next and having an eye for which way the things are moving, you know, like, where's culture moving right now? What do people want to know? 2016 is back, so who gives that 2016 flavor in 2026? You know, it's just knowing those things. I think that just comes
2016
naturally.
Is back as a trend, or is it back as in like generally back?
I think as a trend, but I'd like to say it's back. I think just with like the stillness, or bringing reality back onto social media, where we just don't care. We're posting because, well, we'll always care. Unfortunately, it's 2026. But I mean, like, just bringing back that feeling of living in the moment and, you know, not curating things out of the aesthetic only. So I think it is a trend, but it's something that's back in a 2026 way, if that makes sense.
With that said, how do you know the importance? Look, trends are extremely important, But at some point, especially as not just a presenter, but also as a creative director, how do you know that, listen, we're following trends, but we need to do something substantially different? Where do you draw that line?
What is going to separate me from the bunch?
Yeah.
What is going to make me stand out? That is going to make someone else say, okay, we're saturated in this field. This has happened before. What is going to turn my head? Because like I said, when I'm creating something, I'm not creating it out of a space of being the creator, but also, is this something that I would want to take? What's going to turn my head, Talking
about creative directing, I also think it's a catch-22. On one side, there's an artistic vision, but there's also the commercial rhetoric, the commercial pressure that you have to go through. How do you navigate through that line? That, look, I've got something great here, but you don't know what the audience may demand or what the market demands. How do you draw between the line that there's look, it's a business nonetheless.
Absolutely.
So from the commercial point of view and from an artistic vision point of view, how do you navigate that line?
It's very difficult and it's frustrating. I think it's one of creative's most frustrating aspect, because we need to box our creativity to actually sometimes, give brands what they want or the market what it is that they want within the restrictions and confinements of how far we can go and what we can push. As much as we can tell brands, this is actually, how far you can go. I think with me, I'm always a risk taker. So before I'm just going to accept what it is that I need to keep, I'm going to push to see, okay, how far can I go? How far, I'm never scared to push beyond. But for some instances and sometimes, I think it's okay as a creative person, you reach a state of maturity to know, for now it's okay, let me create within the confinements or the restrictions or what it is that the market wants. And once I give them what they want, then I'll push and say, okay, I gave you what you want, so look at this now.
Yeah.
Let's put it in this way, and let's give it a shot. Give it 2 months, 3 months, and if you like it and if it works, we can run with it, and then I make sure it works.
I always say that creatives can be very selfish, or we're very individualistic. So if you work with a team, like my team is right here right now, how do you know, going back to the whole conversation between commercial pleasure and artistic vision, has there been a point where you guys butt heads, and how do you get the final nail in the coffin?
Absolutely.
This is what we're doing. How do you get that?
I think even working with culture, we're a small team, and it's so cute because it's 2 boys and I'm there with them. And if we have ideas, so for example, we had something to do with Spotify in I think it was the end of 2024, a production piece, and I had all of these ideas because I love production, I love just the creative side of stuff. And they were just yeah, Tash, but I don't know if we can do this, if we can do that. But it's literally just sitting in the space and being you do get frustrated because you feel, as a creative, I think you feel like your ideas are the most amazing thing.
Always. It's the most selfish, individualistic thing you can think of.
Yes, and you literally sit in the room with that tension of guys, you're missing out on such a good idea, but it's okay. But I think in the creative space, collaboration and working with a team is something that you just have to master. Don't take anything personal. Everyone believes that their art is the best thing and the best idea, and that's perfectly fine. See how you can take your idea and someone's idea and join it, and just be open. Just be open. It's not criticism to your art, but more of, how can we make everyone feel included? So just don't take it personally. So they basically serve as a sounding board. Absolutely. Yeah, and you listen attentively. Yes. And there's no point where there's there is. Yeah. There always is. I'm not going to lie. I'm strong-headed, especially in what I believe and my arty side, my creativity. But I just have to. I'm still learning, guys. I promise you. I'm just okay, fine. That's the beauty of it. You always have to learn. You could be 60, you could be 8 years old, you could be 2 years old. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Brand alignment, I think, especially in your case, I'd imagine that there's a plethora of brands, but there's also a point where you have to pinpoint who I could work with. If it could be a month, it could be a week, it could be 3 months. How important is that to you? How do you know that this is the brand I want to work with, and we can go the long mile? I think as a creative in this space, it's very important for you to know what brands do I want to work with, because you need to know how you want to show up. Yeah. because there's a specific type of individual or artist, creative that a brand wants to work with, and only if there's alignment. Alignment is key. And in order for you to know which direction you want to go, you need to be able to sit with yourself and write down what aligns with you, your values, your morals, your principles, and where you want to go. Where do you want to end up in this field? Because it's so vast. In presenting, for example, there's sport, there's music, there's a lifestyle. So I need to align myself in a way on social media, in my normal life, in the interviews that I do, so that I can say, okay, there's a brand that I want to work with, SuperSports, and I'm putting it out there because I really do. So how do I make sure that everything that I'm doing aligns with SuperSports? If there's certain alcohol brands I can't work with, if there's certain products that I can't work with, I can't interview. And if I don't create that alignment, or I know the brands that I want to work with, I'm going to be working with so many different brands, and brands aren't going to be able to know or want to work with me because they won't feel that alignment. You set yourself up as a brand yourself. So for brands to see, Nike is going to say, this girl is us. SuperSports is going to say, this girl is us, because I've portrayed or built myself so much, because I've done my research, because I actually want to work with that brand.
So there's like a cross culture, I'd imagine, in your case, because look, you have a very strong pop culture presence. But if you talk about like sport, like for instance, SuperSports is it's a well-established brand. It's also timing. You know what I mean? And SuperSports, fortunately, they're very innovative. They're very disruptive in their nature. Is that when you're like, okay, I can work with SuperSports as a brand?
Absolutely. So SuperSports has something. This is just my research. So I'm giving guys source for the research.
But don't give too many gems. For anybody who's going to be watching this, I am terribly sorry. I am terribly sorry.
But it's like, for example, they have SuperSport for the streets. SuperSport for the streets is fun. It's about what's happening in the streets. I curate pop culture, and I'm interested in pop culture. How can I align the two? So what you do is you give brands the thing that you let them know, this is what you're missing, guys. And this is what, the culture wants. So something that you can add, and I am the answer. And that's just literally how you position yourself. I think through research, knowing who you are, and making a brand believe that they need you to move into the next step. That's how you're going to win.
Do you think people tend to, especially at the initial stage, so let's say people watching this interview now, do you think that's what people get wrong? In terms of, I've done well in campus radio, I've done as well as a podcaster, I've done well as a presenter on campus or from a community level, and I want to come into the next step. I want to come to like a very commercial, into the commercial side. Do you think people get that wrong? That I want to work for this brand. However, as a brand themselves, as you've just insinuated, that they don't get their gears right, that I'm a brand myself, but they don't work with the right brand at the same time.
Absolutely. I think because we are in such a hurry for the wrong things, because this industry also, like, I think people looking on the outside, you want the fame. I think
fame is a bug.
Yes. That is the biggest problem.
It's detrimental.
And I think, as a creative, you need to know how to separate that from yourself, because it's not just about the fame, And I think once you can see that, people throw themselves off alignment because they want something quick, fast, what's popping. And that's how you miss it. I think if you really need to know what it is that you want, so that you don't fall or accept any job that is given to you, because there's a lot of different briefs that come. There's a lot of different things that I can take part in, but because I know there's A, B, C, D brands that I want to work with, this is something they're not going to align with, even if it's in the long run, because who's to say, I don't know when I'm going to work with those brands. But because I'm stuck to the program of, this is who I know I want to become, I can say no to certain brands. I don't need to work in certain instances, and I think that is the biggest thing that creatives need to learn.
In essence, do you think that relates to relevance? Do you think that relates to longevity?
Absolutely.
Why?
If you want to be sustainable in this industry, you need to look with the eye vision of longevity. You can't just look for the present. You can't just look for what's hot right now. This industry is ever changing and ever evolving, and as well as the brands. But if you can build yourself up as a structured creative, knowing what you stand for, brands are going to see that, and the brands that you want to work with are going to see that. It's a long game, and it's frustrating, because it's almost like, how do I know if I'm going to work for SuperSports in the next 3 years? But you stay committed to it, and then align yourself with things. I'm also very like, what you put out into the world is going to open up and maneuver you in that way,
The idea that this may be very selfish, but I also feel that people draw a lot of inspiration from social media.
Yes.
Where do you draw inspiration from? Because I hate this idea. And look, we can't lie. We live in a generation, we're always on our phones, probably like 8 hours a day. How do you draw inspiration other than social media? Do you have somebody that you speak to? There's like a mentor you talk to? How do you go about doing that?
I literally take inspiration from everything around me. To be honest, there's never a time where I can tell you that I'm like, oh, I only take my inspiration from social media. I absolutely take my inspiration from social media. But it's about the people that I'm around. If I go to different events, I have amazing people in my life. I can't disclose too much, but I work with one of the best in the game. And just like seeing how they show up in the world, what they stand for, what they do, people's life stories, and then my own. I think like I'm really inspired by what I went through and where I am now, and just like everything that is around me inspires me. I observe everything and I'm just like, okay, what can I make and how can I make this work?
We started this conversation, you said something very important. You said the importance of stories. People's stories matter to the audience, but I'm assuming they matter to you too.
Absolutely.
And they shape how you think. Why is that so important to you? Why is it just not people that you're interviewing, but I mean, when I spoke about inspiration, people like your family, people like your friends, their stories in some shape or form shape how you present yourself in the world. I'm assuming that.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that's how you portray yourself.
Absolutely.
Or how you see yourself. And that draws inspiration.
And it's so true because you can't separate a person from what they've been through.
Yeah.
Everything is so much more interesting if I'm going to talk about your story. So you have me on this podcast. Imagine you were just asking me questions about surface level. What brands are you going to work with now? What are the brands saying? What is going to draw people to the podcast is really just knowing about the story, where it started, how was I transformed, why did I go into that space, And stories is what makes a person them. It's what brought me to the creative space. It's what brought you into the creative space, And I think it's something like stories is the thing that keeps us grounded or interested in culture, because it's what made the person. Why am I the way I am? Why do I have so much grit?
I get the sense you're extremely self-aware. Have you always been that? I get the sense you're extremely self-aware. You're very self-conscious about yourself, but about people. Why is that so important to remain self-aware, especially in the industry that you're in?
The industry can.
It sounds like a religious question, huh?
Yeah. It really does. It really does. But it's okay.
Like
I'm such a Jesus girl, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Even if it sounds very spiritual. But I think this industry can change you.
Yeah.
It can shake you. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of influence. There's a lot of trends that people will say that you need to conform to be able to make it. As a young girl, I speak about it freely on my TikTok, on my Instagram, just the pressures where talent can't get me into the room because there's certain things that people expect from me, really bad things. Our industry is really tough. And I am just self-aware because of everything that I've been through.
Yeah.
That created this version of me. So I'm constantly checking in. I'm constantly aware. But it's so important. I can't emphasize this more, especially for a young girl. It is so important to be self-aware, know who you are when you enter this space in this industry, because there are vultures out there that can rip you apart. This industry is tough. You must develop a lot of thick skin because it's never done to you, it's done for you. You're going to experience a lot of criticism, a lot of closed doors if you don't offer what the industry wants, in a lack of better words. Not to go too far into bad words, we want to keep it PG up though. But it's tough, and being self-aware allows you to stay grounded and stay the course and actually make it big for yourself as a young girl. I think it's different for men, but I think as a female, you really need to be self-aware.
Especially in the country we live in.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. Tashlyn Louw, thank you so much for coming to Unmasked. I think the conversation, we're actually running out of time. I think we're 2 minutes left. Thank you so much. I think you are, besides being a great storyteller, besides having a great vision, I think you're definitely a breath of fresh air. And I think I'm not giving you flowers now because I feel like I'm going to give you flowers again in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months.
Amen.
You are doing something right. I think you're a big inspiration to many, and you will be in places that many people won't. But in the same breath, I think you have an amazing message. And just stick to it, man. Thank you for coming to Unmasked.
Thank you so much, Karabo.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Tashlyn Louw is out of the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.